I'm finna sneak into Costco. Hopefully no one sees me. Rich niggas go to Costco and shop wholesale. Oh my God. Oh, this shit crazy. Oh, fuck. Come on, man. Fuck. First and foremost, hopefully nobody see me. I'm in a filthy SUV that I gotta wash myself. I gotta get the slippery soap though. I'm at AutoZone. The boss shouldn't be in AutoZone, so now I gotta sneak in the AutoZone, get the slippery soap, then wash the dirty SUV.
Hopefully nobody sees me. That was the joke Rick Ross leaned into after being spotted on a commercial flight. He claimed it was intentional, saying his jet was being upgraded with Starlink internet. But ever since then, it feels like the situation has gotten under his skin. Not long after, he posted about making a Costco run, joking that he had to sneak in unnoticed. Even though he was clearly having fun with it, it also showed that all the attention had definitely affected him. Alright, so look, I'm gonna sneak into Costco. Hopefully nobody sees me. Then it was AutoZone. First and foremost, hopefully nobody sees me. I'm in a filthy SUV that I gotta wash myself. I gotta get the slippery soap though. I'm at AutoZone. The boss shouldn't be in AutoZone. The reality is, people are going to troll Rick Ross no matter what, especially because he always responds. He addresses the jokes, reacts to them, and usually ends up feeding right into the conversation. Under the Costco clips, some people joke that they weren't surprised he shops at Costco and buys things in bulk because of his size. What actually surprised them was seeing him on a commercial flight. Ross even reacted to jokes about his appearance. You see that scar? If I had him right now, I'd do a prank. That's a stretch mark. Ain't no scar. The reason the airport clip became such a story is because Rick Ross has spent most of his career showing people just how wealthy he is. For years, his image has been built around luxury, private jets, mansions, and expensive purchases. So when people suddenly saw him flying commercial, it didn't fit the image. Nobody was saying he was broke. It just created a narrative because of the things Ross himself has said over the years. It's the boss, Ricky Rosby. I've been seeing a lot of talk about private jets. You want to make it to the venues, you want to get your money, but I came up with a solution. I grinded for near 20 years before I got my G550. But I got just what you need. This 152. This is a great plane to learn how to fly on. 100 horses in the engine. You won't miss your shows. Handle your business. You can have you a date. It's the boss. It's still crazy that something as simple as flying commercial turned into such a huge discussion. Only Rick Ross could get backlash for not flying private. Then came the internet detectives. One person claimed Ross was lying, pointing to flight records and saying the jet hadn't flown in over a month. According to them, the Starlink explanation didn't add up and they called him a fraud. What makes the whole thing funny is that Ross owns enormous properties and lives a lifestyle most people could never imagine. Plenty of people pointed that out. One comment summed it up perfectly. People were worried about a man not using his private jet for a month when most people will never even have the opportunity to fly private once. Another person simply said people were watching the wrong pockets. And honestly, that seems closer to reality. Rick Ross doesn't appear to have a money problem. What he appears to have is an ego problem. He constantly feels the need to prove himself to the internet. That's why, after the airport story took off, it felt inevitable that people would start seeing more videos of Ross on private jets, showing luxury meals, and reminding everyone that he still has access to that lifestyle. One of the funniest examples came from an old interview where Meek Mill tried to join a conversation about Ross aircraft. "I seen an airplane with your name on it. That's a jet." Wait, there's a difference between a jet and an airplane? There kind of is. Oh, because an airplane could be any old anything? Right. You could get an airplane for, yeah, them little two-engine ones. And we ain't mad at that. I want to fly one of those. It gotta have at least two motors, so if one go out I could glide the other one in like a boss. But that G550? It's different. You talking 35 million? Yeah. Meek then jokingly tried to work his way onto a free flight. But Ross completely took over the conversation, making it clear exactly how proud he was of that jet. Then there was the watch controversy. Ross posted a video showing off what he claimed was a $2 million Jacob & Company piece. Put that $2 million Jacob on for the first time. Motivation for the youngsters, for the hustlers, for the entrepreneurs. Not everyone was convinced. A well-known watch expert later questioned the authenticity of the piece and openly called Ross out. Rick Ross. That was embarrassing. The argument was that a watch of that magnitude would have been nearly impossible to acquire the way Ross described it. What made the situation interesting was that Ross could easily afford expensive watches. The criticism wasn't about whether he had money. It was about whether he was accurately representing what he was wearing. And just like every other controversy, Ross responded. It was obviously a misunderstanding with a piglet talking about fake watches, and he was inaccurate. Thank you to the Rob Report for issuing a correction. The piglet, we don't know him. We don't want to know him. Again, his ego simply wouldn't allow him to ignore it. Then, in classic Rick Ross fashion, he responded the way only Rick Ross could. Not with a statement, but with another purchase. Soon afterward, he was showing off what was reportedly a $20 million watch featuring two massive natural diamonds totaling over 216 carats. According to the story, it took years just to source the stones. This cannot be duplicated. It cannot be replicated. And that's really the fascinating thing about Ross. You rarely see billionaires and other industries constantly posting every luxury purchase they make. Yet in hip-hop, displaying success has always been part of the culture, and Ross has embraced that better than almost anyone. That's why the criticism gets to him. His image has always been tied to wealth. People have joked about his jewelry before. You never seen someone ice rose? Well, talk to every jeweler in Miami that has fake diamonds. Whether true or not, those kinds of comments clearly stick with him. So now, after the commercial flight situation, people are expecting him to double down even more. And honestly, some of the content has already been hilarious. One clip showed a horse casually eating near his Ferraris at his property, while Ross proudly filmed the entire scene. Ricky Rosary Car Show, baby. That's Rick Ross in a nutshell. Every day is another reminder of how rich he is. His biggest fear isn't people saying he's successful. It's people thinking he's losing it all. That's why he constantly feels the need to have the final word. They used to laugh at me. I was in the back of the class. I couldn't read or write well. But guess what? I count good now. I count good now. Even DJ academics pointed out that the real story was never about Ross flying commercial. It was about how unusual it looked. It wasn't the fact that he was on a regular flight. Plenty of wealthy people do that. It was seeing Rick Ross sitting alone in an airport, without the entourage, security, assistants, or crew people normally associate with him. That image felt completely different from the character he's built over the years. Academics also made a fair point. If the jet really was being upgraded, there's nothing wrong with saving money. A comparable private flight on that route could cost tens of thousands of dollars each way. Flying commercial instead might save an enormous amount of money. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it's actually more impressive to have money and spend it wisely. That's why the other side of Rick Ross is often the most interesting version of him. When he talks about business, investments, and long-term wealth building, there's usually a lot to learn. For example, when discussing his Wingstop investment, he explained how one location eventually became a $1 million a year store and helped set the foundation for future growth. That side of Ross is practical. It's calculated. It's smart. The irony is that there was never anything wrong with taking a commercial flight in the first place. Whether his jet was being upgraded or not, it really shouldn't have mattered. The issue was always perception. Because Rick Ross has spent years telling the world how luxurious his lifestyle is, people naturally expect him to live that image every single day. And when he doesn't, the internet notices. That's why so many rappers ended up clowning him over it. Not because he flew commercial, but because it seemed out of character. He looked uncomfortable with the narrative, and that's what kept the story alive. At the end of the day, Rick Ross is still Rick Ross. He's still incredibly wealthy, still making business moves, and still finding ways to remind everyone about it. In fact, when an interviewer once mentioned that Google estimated his net worth at $20 million, Ross burst out laughing. I know I got more money than that. Then he explained that he sometimes avoids checking his exact balances because staring at numbers all day drives him crazy. And maybe there's a lesson somewhere in all of this. Living below your means is usually a smart decision, regardless of how much money you have. If someone chooses a commercial flight over spending a fortune on a private jet, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But this is Rick Ross we're talking about. And when it comes to money, image, and ego, he's never going to let people think they got the last laugh.